What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are comparing the Fanstoys Parkour with the X-Transbots Toro. It's the battle of bots that I need an accent to pronounce properly, I'd say. But either way, I think a lot of people knew that this was coming. I couldn't do it last week because of the other stuff. I do have another versus coming soon with the Jetfires, I hope. But I do have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Real quick, the Dummies episode about what makes for a good and bad transformation. The amount of people that thought that that was about specifically Fanstoys Cliff Jumper, or that it had anything to do with the size of my hands. You guys, some of you guys never cease to amaze me. Look, I've transformed tiny itty bitty Legends figures with no problem with the same big hands that I've transformed huge robots like that Dark of the Moon Megatron or whatever with tons of problems. It's not about the size of my hands nor the size of the bots. For instance, if you have a piece of plastic that is supposed to move around a leg, let's say, but the piece of plastic doesn't clear the leg, so you have to bend the piece of plastic to get it around the leg in order to clear it. It has nothing to do with the size of one's hands. It has to do with something that's poorly designed. Now, there are some subjects within there that are 100% subjective, and you could debate whether or not it's enjoyable or not enjoyable, but it wasn't really about whether something was complex or the size of my hands or that cliff jumper specifically. I just used that picture because it was something that frustrated me recently. And I do think it's a bad transformation, but that video wasn't about that toy specifically. It's a shame that I feel like I have to explain that, but I read the comments and I had to explain it. The only other thing that I wanted to mention was apparently on that Minosaur, I didn't have the shoulders clipped in all the way, which is fair. Strike that criticism from the record, but the criticism still holds because the legs come off as well. So it's still a connection joint issue, and it's a criticism, although I do like the thing overall. And I believe that's it. So we can go ahead and get started. I certainly know which way I think it's going to go, but time will tell in less than 3, they say. Let's go ahead. And we'll start with accessories. Fanstoys comes with the 3 heads, which is a nice touch. It also comes with the skis, which I guess you could consider a gimmick. Both do come with the skis. Fanstoys comes with 2 guns, one for each of you. The X-Transbots comes with a slew of guns. All of the kind of hood accessories for Cliff Jumper in alt mode. The staff, for what reason I'm not sure, but it comes with it. As well as the sled to keep all the accessories. Just an absolute ton. Gimmicks wise, and a surprise, I thought the X-Transbots headlights came up, but I can't get mine to budge. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize and we'll tie it out. But otherwise, the Cliff Jumper car doors can open and the X-Transbots can't, so I'm giving the gimmicks to Fanstoys unless I'm wrong about those headlights, in which case, consider it a tie. But I can't get mine to budge. And I checked out a few reviews and I couldn't see anybody talking about it, so I'm going to give it to Fanstoys for the time being. Moving on to build and materials. For materials, I'm giving it to Fanstoys. Fanstoys has the extra die cast in there that doesn't really take away from the figure in any way, shape, or form, but does add a little bit of weight, and therefore I'm giving them the materials. Both of their plastics feel good. But for build, I'm giving it to X-Transbots because Fanstoys has some joints that are far too tight. For instance, those shoulders that don't move the shoulder, they move the shoulder armatures, and my one elbow is loose, which tends to be a common problem as I saw in the comments. So I'm giving build to X-Transbots, I'm giving materials to Fanstoys. One of the other reasons I'm giving the materials to Fanstoys is Fanstoys does incorporate at least one ratchet into their figure for a joint, whereas X-Transbots pretty much uses all tension or ball joints. So Fanstoys takes the hardware as well. Moving on to sculpt and paint. So from the front view, I think it easily goes to Fanstoys. Fanstoys nails proportions. It's one of the things that always puts them at the forefront of the frontal view. The overall presentation of a figure, this is no different. X-Transbots' kind of feet are ultra wide. The torso, chest area seems disproportionate to the arms. Arms seem a bit disproportionate to the legs. It's like the upper body of the X-Transbots, like from here up, match the feet, but this part seems wrong, whereas the Fanstoys is pretty much properly proportioned throughout. For the frontal view, I think they both get the helmet pretty much right of the head anyway. The problem here is that I feel like something is wrong about the Fanstoys face, just in the shape of the nose and eyes, and the X-Transbots face seems caved in. So I don't think either one of them get it quite right, because I think the X-Transbots face kind of, the sculpt is better, but the shape is wrong. Fanstoys, I think the shape is right, but the sculpt is not as well done. So I'm tying them out. Once again, this kind of shows like the shape of the brow and nose of the cliff jumper seems off to me, and the kind of lower part of the face concaved into the helmet seems wrong to me on the X-Transbots. So once again, I don't think either of them really nailed it. I'm tying them out. As for the chest, once again, this is a big proportions issue. I think Fanstoys gets the sculpt better. I also like the red color in general better. I can't really give that to them throughout. It's just like a 1 point kind of thing. I'm just mentioning it. Also, I feel like the Fanstoys has a more intentional abdomen. From the side, neither of them are perfect. Neither of them quite do it right, but I think we can all agree the Fanstoys does do it better. So yeah, I mean, that's all there is to say about it. That X-Transbots backpack has always been an ordeal, let's say. Moving on to the arms, I think it's a wash. Fanstoys is better painted, but they're going to take the paint category anyway. Sculpt-wise, they're pretty much identical. I don't like that you can see the ball peg on the X-Transbots. I don't like the seam running through the middle of the Fanstoys. That doesn't look like sculpt, that looks like assembly, so I'm tying them out. From the side, I got to give it to Fanstoys. They're both pretty identical, but X-Transbots has those gaps that once again allow you to see assembly as opposed to sculpt. The reason why this is because the X-Transbots uses one piece of plastic for the shoulder and one piece of plastic for the bicep, so it can't be a solid box. It has to be hollow. For instance, the X-Transbots on the inside of the arm, which we don't really showcase, shows the mushroom peg plus another hollow piece, whereas the Fanstoys doesn't because it uses multiple pieces of plastic. It just is a better done thing in that regard, so it takes the category. Moving on to the pelvis, once again, I gotta give it to Fanstoys. The shapes are pretty much negligible, although I do think the Fanstoys is still more purposeful, plus you don't see the pins. And just on that alone, it presents better. Let alone the paint, but like I said, I'm already giving Fanstoys the paint point. Once again, the Fanstoys just looks more purposeful from the side. It reminds me of one of those lines, like those famous quotes, like, you know, we do what we want, you do what you can. The X-Transbot seems like the hips are there to fit inside of the car engineering, whereas the Fanstoys feels like it looks like this because that's how the robot's supposed to look. So I gotta give it to Fanstoys. Moving on to the legs, I actually prefer the sculpt work and design of the legs better on the X-Transbots, but the feet on the Fanstoys, once again, are more purposeful, more cohesive. So I'm tying them out on the legs because I don't like the sculpt work on the Fanstoys leg. It looks cheap and too cartoony for me. But the feet on the X-Transbots looks like he got his regular feet stuck in something huge and like you can't get it off, so to speak. Now from the side, I have to give it to Fanstoys, but just by a smidgen, because I like the sculpt work better once again than the legs of the X-Transbots. If that tire could have had a cover on it to fill out that black hole, I don't think it would have looked any more odd than the Fanstoys one. So I do have to tie them out again, but it is somewhat reluctant. And looking at them from the back, neither one of them are complete knockouts. However, I think Fanstoys does it better. It doesn't have all of the gaping gaps, so to speak, of the forearms or the calves. The backpack is a bit less unsightly, and the feet are a little bit more put together. So I gotta give it to Fanstoys. So a bit of a knockout. They tie in the head because neither one of them get it quite right. They tie in the lower legs because I like the sculpt work better on the X-Transbots. I like the feet better on the Fanstoys. So the upper legs, I like the X-Transbots sculpt work better, so the upper legs go to X-Transbots. Fanstoys takes the full frontal view and the full back view, so to speak. Fanstoys takes the chest, abdomen area. Fanstoys takes the pelvis, so to speak. Fanstoys takes the arms due to the side view. Once again, that was a cost-saving feature for the X-Transbots, but Fanstoys went the extra mile. I'm sure we paid for it, but like I said, I'm willing to pay for what I want. So all in all, Fanstoys takes it home in the sculpt and paint department. Let's go through articulation. So the Fanstoys, one of the best things about this figure that I love is how the helmet raises up on this hinge swivel. It does get to a ridiculous degree, but you can get all the way up. You can even get a little bit down. You get the head swivel. The X-Transbots does a hinge swivel as well, but it's less up. It's less down, but you do get the swivel. Fanstoys shoulders get out to 90 degrees. You can even rotate that piece up. It actually will probably come with it to get a higher bend on it, but not that that really counts. And then you get the 360 around. Once again, that joint will probably come with it. Unlike the Fanstoys, which is on a universal, the X-Transbots is on a ball peg that gets you out to 90 degrees and 360 around. Bicep swivel, bicep swivel. Single hinged elbow that gets you more than 90 degrees. Single hinged elbow that gets you 90 degrees. Wrist swivel. Fingers on a base pin knuckle with typewriter fingers. Wrist swivel, you do get the hinge up and down because of the transformation, and the fingers are on a base pin knuckle. Waist swivel with ab crunch. Universals for hips get you for the full Van Damme, and they get you forward and back to there. Universals for hips get you the full Van Damme, but they also get you the full Monty. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Knee on a single hinge gets you way past 90 degrees for basically the full run. Knee on a double hinge pretty much does the same thing. Ankles for the Fanstoys on a ball peg, which gets you an ankle tilt up, a slight ankle tilt down, and a slight rocker. Ankles on the X-Transbots get you an ankle tilt up, and a slight ankle tilt down, and an extreme rocker. So they tie at the shoulders, bicep, hands, thighs, and knees. Fanstoys takes the elbows and the head articulation. X-Transbots takes the waist, wrist, and ankle articulation, giving the X-Transbots the slight edge. Moving on to scale is a bit tricky with this one. I'm ultimately giving it to Fanstoys because Cliff Jumper is supposed to be the same height as Bumblebee, and that is supposed to run through about the middle of the chest of Sunstreaker and the bottom of the chest of Ironhide, which this Cliff Jumper pretty much does 100%. I do pardon the Cliff Jumper from X-Transbots because they made him the same size as Bumblebee, which they were also supposed to do. But this Bumblebee, the first Bumblebee from the Masterpiece offering, is too small. So although I understand X-Transbots' motivations, the Fanstoys offering is going for the line overall and not matching it to one character. So I'm giving it to Fanstoys. Moving on to transformation, I do have some complaints with the X-Transbots here and there. It's not the most smooth as silk operation, but in comparison to the Fanstoys, I would do it 1,000 times to not have to do the Fanstoys ever again. The Fanstoys has nothing to do with the size of my fingers. In fact, it has to do with the build quality that we've already knocked them for. Certain joints too tight to manipulate, certain joints flop around because they're too loose. There's no elegance to it whatsoever. It feels like Fanstoys at their worst instead of Fanstoys at their best. So in a very easy decision to make, the engineering transformation wise goes to X-Transbots. Alt mode is a tricky one again. They're both going for different things. X-Transbots is going for a more realistic vehicle. Fanstoys is going for the more cartoon penny racer vehicle. They both do a decent job. However, if we had to pick one, I think that X-Transbots does a better job of capturing a realistic vehicle than Fanstoys does of capturing the cartoon model, mainly due to Fanstoys' inability to get that back squared away. It haunts the transformation, it haunts the robot mode, it is the chink in the armor of this figure in general. And it shines its ugly head here again, and as a result, I'm giving X-Transbots the alt mode. The X-Transbots has all the extra details of the headlights, all the extra details of the turn signals, brake signals, backup lights, etc. And I even like the dark translucent better on the X-Transbots than I like the blue on the Fanstoys. That's a subjective thing, but even without that, X-Transbots takes it from me. Moving on to accuracy, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that X-Transbots takes the loss over Fanstoys, which gets much closer to the cartoon model if that's something that is a big point for you. If you're not, Fanstoys takes it. Moving on to price, it's impossible to get like a real accurate number based on second releases versus first releases, inflation, blah, blah, blah. But if you were to pick them up right now, X-Transbots would be the cheaper choice, giving X-Transbots the point over Fanstoys. All right, which one do you think looks better?
I think this one.
Okay, and...
I think I still like this one.
Okay. All right, which one do you think looks better?
This one.
All right, you can touch them.
This one feels better too.
All right, thank you. Which one do you think looks better?
That one. That one's a chungus.
Chunkus. Which one do you think feels better?
I feel like that one feels more real, but that one is more nice feeling.
Okay. Which one do you think looks better?
This one.
That one? And which one do you think feels better?
I'm gonna say this one, the same.
Same one? All right, which brings us to the end of the road. X-Transbots takes accessories because they have more. They take the build because it's more consistently built across the board, whereas Fanstoys has tighter and looser joints here and there. They take articulation due to winning out 2 categories over the Fanstoys or what the Fanstoys has to offer. They take transformation because it's not a complete nightmare. They take the alt mode because I think it is better realized even though it's a different approach. And they take the price because that's pretty black and white. Fanstoys takes the gimmicks just to being able to have the doors open. That's the one thing X-Transbots might be able to tie them out in if I'm wrong about that. They take the materials because of the die cast added in. They also take the hardware due to the ratchets added in. They take the sculpt because they won more categories. They take the paint because it is better painted and more painted. They take the scale, which I think is arguable, but I think it deserves it. I think that the B is more off than the other two. It takes the presence due to preference here at home. In accuracy, I think no one can argue, which gives Fanstoys the win 8/6.
Yes.
Which, if I'm wrong about that gimmick thing, they would be tied. So I don't know. But as far as I can figure out, if it is the true, then mine doesn't move. And if mine doesn't move, then I would tie them out at build. So Fanstoys would win either way, if that makes sense. So there you have it. And forgive me if I'm mistaken. And of course, I'm not sure about those headlights. But forgive me if I'm mistaken. But I believe this is the first versus that did not have one tied category, which is interesting and fun. Something new. I do have something new also I'm going to add. In my mind, you guys could break this down for yourselves and apply it where necessary, but I see in the comments all the time that perhaps I could give another example of what this versus is supposed to do. So on one hand, the versus is supposed to illustrate the best overall purchase, right? For the overall, overarching, what could you want in a figure? And in this situation, Fanstoys wins as the best overall purchase. But I'm going to break this down a bit further, and I'm going to use this matrix from now on. So in addition to the best overall purchase, if you wanted to look at what was the best display piece, you should take build, sculpt, paint, and presence into account, which would give Fanstoys the win as the best display option due to sculpt, paint, and presence all being won by them. If you were looking for the best transformer, meaning you have something and you want to be able to flip it back and forth and have that puzzle aspect or that sort of game aspect to it, you would want to look at build, materials, and transformation, which in this case is won by X-Transbots, who take the build and transformation category, so once again 2-1. And the third matrix that I have available is what's the most playable. And in order to take this into account, you need to look at the build, materials, articulation, and transformation, which in this circumstance they tie out, with X-Transbots taking the transformation and build, and Fanstoys taking the materials and articulation. So hopefully that gives you even more of an idea of what you're looking for in terms of how you make your own purchase. But yeah, that was a good one. Right down to the wire, I'd say. With that being said, I might be back here on the public channel next week due to Jetfire whenever he comes in. If not, probably the week after. If you're looking for all the other sit-down Saturdays, we're over at Patreon. Looking for all the Legends reviews, we're over at Patreon. G.I. Joe Classified, Star Wars Black Series, Marvel Legends. We even looked at a Robotech or whatever Macross thing this week. All that stuff is over there. So with that being said, I will be back hopefully with a review this week if that Jetfire comes in. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.